Welcome to the PCAC meeting. Today's July 25th, or it is not, today's July 23rd, 2025. And I'm going to call the meeting to order at 5:01 p.m. We are now using Zoom, so at this time I'd like to let you know the Zoom webinar participation is available for members of the public. The Zoom webinar ID and link are available on our posted agenda, which is on the city website. Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Martha, please call the roll.
Here.
Here. Present.
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 Chair Miller.
Present. I'd like to welcome, we have 4 new committee members, which is really exciting, and we also haven't had a meeting since the official swearing in of our chief, so it's an exciting meeting. Our new members tonight are Lisbeth Camacho, Patsy Gasca, Yolanda Hayes, and Shanice Valerta. We're now going to open for public comment on items that are not on the agenda and that are in the City of Salinas' subject matter jurisdiction. Comments on consideration and the consent agenda should be held until the items are reached. Public comments generally are limited to 2 minutes per speaker. I may further the limit of time for public comments depending on our agenda schedule. Martha, do we have any comments on Zoom?
No comments.
Do you have any comments?
No comments via Zoom.
Okay. Do we have any public comments within the rotunda?
Good afternoon. Welcome back. My name is Eric Peterson. Just a couple things. Every once in a while I bring this up, and someday somebody's going to come up to me and say, yeah, we're doing that. And that is training for Salinas Police, specifically in dealing with people with disabilities. And as you can probably tell, I qualify. I've had people actually come up to me and accuse me of listening to music during meetings. There's, 4.6 million veterans with hearing disabilities in the United States, and they define it as people with hearing bad enough so they get disability payments. About 15% of the national population has hearing disabilities, and we've got all sorts of other things. I'm kind of prodded on this. I've had a couple incidents in the last 15 months that are tugging at me. One was not here. No, one was Morgan Hill, where a deputy sheriff snuck up behind me and was talking to me, and turned out he was miffed that he thought I was ignoring him. I never heard him. And then when I saw him, and he didn't seem to understand the concept of somebody with bad hearing, but that was pretty minor. I was in a traffic stop in Colorado, and the deputy sheriff, I've got a sign I carry in my RV that's that big and says, hearing disability. Pretty easy to understand. Well, this guy didn't. And it got not contentious, but it wasn't as smooth as it should have been. And I don't think that guy would benefit from training anyway, but I think the first one, the guy in Morgan Hill, I think would. And as I say, there's all sorts of other disabilities, and a lot of them aren't obvious. My hearing disability isn't obvious unless you look for my hearing aids or something like this. And there was an incident a couple decades ago in Los Angeles where some guy was holding a toy gun, and his hearing level was 0. And he wound up getting shot and killed by a police officer. And we definitely
you.
do not need that.
Thank you for sharing. We've
Yeah.
reached time for that comment.
Okay, second comment real quick is, in the interest of rumor control, I heard that there was a sweep at the First Methodist Church of the homeless, and it'd be nice to know if that's true or not.
Thank you, we'll consider that. Do we have any other comments from the public or anything received via email? Thank you. We're going to move on to considerations. The selection of the Police Community Advisory Committee, the committee chair and vice chair. We'll be taking nominations for both the chair and vice chair at this time. I'll begin on my right. Do we have any nominations for the chair and vice chair? Ms. Hillary?
I nominate you, Leah, the current chair.
Thank you.
I concur. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just want to clarify, is there a limitation on consecutive terms for chair? I was looking at the bylaws, it may be 2 consecutive years.
Chris Callahan, I'm your city attorney, and that's correct. It's 2 consecutive terms as chair or vice chair under the bylaws.
Would that make you ineligible?
We're going years, not medians?
I'm sorry?
Years, not medians,
It's
correct?
years,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay. I would be close, so I need to look at the exact date.
For vice chair, however, as a separate role?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Then in that case, I would like to nominate Leo De La Rosa for chair.
Thank you.
I second.
Leo De La Rosa, okay. Lee?
Nominate?
Yes, any nominations for chair or co-chair?
I nominate Betsy for chair.
And Shanice, do you have any nominations for chair or vice chair?
I nominate Leo De La Rosa for chair.
If I can go back for chair, nominating you for chair, just to clarify.
Okay,
Co-chair, I mean,
got it. Thank you.
or vice chair.
Okay, we're going to be open for public comments on this particular item. Do we have any comments on Zoom?
No comments via Zoom.
Okay, do we have any comments within the room? All right. Can I get a motion for the chair and co-chair nominees?
I so move as presented.
And a second to the motion?
I'll second. Elizabeth Camacho.
With a motion from Committee Member Gasca and a second from Committee Member Camacho, we will have a roll call vote, please.
So, who's gonna be?
Do you, I know I'm reading off of this, yeah, so I want, I just want that as well after I said it. So we'll start with chair. Would that make the most sense?
Right, we start with chair. And just so we're clear, what is the motion that's on the floor? Committee Member Gasca made a motion, but what was your motion, if we may ask?
For the nomination of Leo De La Rosa as chair.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so with a motion for the nomination of Leo De La Rosa as chair, we have Committee Member Gasca and a second from Committee Member Camacho, correct, for Leo as chair.
Correct. I'm just clarifying. It says in the event of 2 nominations are made, one has to concede, correct?
Right, and so we have a number of nominations, but we have one motion. And so we can consider the motion that's currently on the floor.
And due to my ineligibility, I'm conceding.
If I may.
They're just clarifying the motion initially, and then once we have clarification, we'll roll call, right?
We make a motion to open for discussion, because the way I read this, in section 6, it says, "No person shall serve more than 2 consecutive terms." And to my understanding, you've only had 1 term, Leah. Is that correct, or am I mistaken? Because the previous chair was, I believe, Yolanda?
It was Yolanda, and I
So
think that,
she's had one term. She is not, the way I'm reading it, more than 2 consecutive terms. So I don't know if that makes you ineligible or not. So I just want to clarify that. And
So
we
ha-
have 2 motions. I mean, well, do we need another motion to also have Leah be nominated as a chair in addition to Leo De La Rosa as a chair?
Yes, you would, to answer
That's
that
what I
second
thought.
question, but,
Thank you.
so just so we're clear, current Chair Miller, how many terms have you served?
I came in mid, so when Yolanda left, I came in there, I believe. I
Okay.
think Martha's going to check dates just to confirm. So I think if I were to go on for another year, then it would put me at 2.5. So I would go over that point, but I think I just want confirmation on dates to make sure.
Well, if you assumed somebody else's position as chair, that would be considered one term. And so you could conceivably, if nominated and approved, serve a second consecutive term consistent with the bylaws, right? So you've only served a part of one term, as I understand it,
1.5.
1.5, I believe.
1.5, okay.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get confirmation on.
Okay, so you could serve half a term.
Okay.
Can I make a motion to open discussion for us as members here?
So
Because go
there's a
ahead.
motion to, and a second on the floor, and so we can have discussion on that motion now without the need for a motion. But if you'd like to make a substitute motion to put somebody else forward as chair, you may do so.
Not for chair, but given that we have not met for almost a year, does her term still technically serve as a term, given that we have not met
Yes.
in over 11 months?
In my opinion, yes.
It still counts as her term.
Yes.
Thank you.
And as a point of clarification, there was 2 chair nominations. I would like to concede mine to Leo at this time, just so the process is clear.
Understood.
And just to clarify, you say serve another half term. According to our bylaws, the decision has to be made in July. So a half term would put us another appointment at the end of the year. So that would go against our bylaws?
Not necessarily. The vice chair could assume the role of chair.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So we have one motion and a second.
I'm looking to confirm the dates, just to make sure that we're on the same page.
I'm still confused. So we appointed our current chair, and we haven't gotten him back coming. And then we have who was nominated for co-chair?
The nominations were open to both, so to chair and co-chair. So currently, we have myself, Leo, and then Leo, I believe you mentioned Patsy as well. So there are 3 names up for both chair and co-chair, and we're just confirming dates. But I do believe that despite not having the meetings fulfilled throughout the past year, that I would be ineligible regardless, just based on the terms served.
Yes, by looking at our notes and our data, you were, by September, you were already a chair, September of 2023. So we're kind of close. Thank you.
Sure, and for just the sake of ease, I think I'll go ahead. I would be eligible for co-chair, ineligible for chair based on that. So I will go ahead and give that vote to Leo. I think that Leo is great and has been doing this for a very long time, so I'm support that motion, absolutely. So at this time, we have Committee Member Gasca's motion. We have Committee Member Camacho's second. Ms. Giller, is there any discussion that you want to have at this time with me? Okay. Okay, thank you. Does anybody else have any discussion items at this time regarding that decision? Okay. So at this time would be appropriate to please call for a vote now that we are clear on that we are voting in Mr. De La Rosa as our chair.
Yes, so the vote, the motion is for Leo de la Rosa to be our chair, and committee member Birrueta? Yes. Committee member Camacho?
Yes.
Committee member Gasca?
Yes.
Committee member Guillory?
Yes.
Committee member Hayes?
Yes.
Chair Miller?
Yes.
Motion passes. So we now have Leo de la Rosa will be our chair. Thank you.
Congratulations. Thank you. You swap, or should I finish the vote? We'll swap
He
now.
assumes the position now.
Okay. So you'll continue the vote for co-chair?
Can she continue for today and not for next meeting?
Move it on over.
I'm over, Mr. de la Rosa.
Yeah.
Cake? Am I here, Mark? I'll let you keep this because you're gonna need it.
Vice.
Vice, unless you have a motion for someone.
Okay, so now we're going to vote for vice at this moment in time. Okay,
So we need a motion for vice chair, or did we have a motion already for vice chair? No, okay.
Second?
Okay, we have a motion for Leah Meter to be our vice chair. Motion made by Ms. Hayes, committee member Hayes, and second by committee member Camacho. So we go for the vote. Chair de la Rosa? Yes? Yes. Committee member Birrueta? Yes. Committee member Camacho?
Yes.
Committee member Gasca?
Yes.
Committee member Guillory?
Yes.
Committee member Hayes?
Yes.
And committee member Miller?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
good. Okay, the next, we're done with this. Okay, since we're done with that, now we'll move on to the approval of the minutes of, from August 28, 2024.
I'll second.
Yolanda approved first, Leah second. We're done with that. Now,
Okay, we have a motion from committee member Yolanda Hayes and second by committee member Miller. So we're going to make a vote right now. So committee member Birrueta? Committee member Camacho?
Yes.
Committee member Gasca?
I'm going to abstain since I wasn't here during that meeting.
Okay. Committee member Guillory?
I too will abstain. I was absent at that meeting.
Committee member Hayes?
Yes.
Committee member Miller?
Yes.
Motion passes.
thank you. Okay, now we shall go to, move to the presentation of the Brown Act.
Thank you, Chair, new Chair, and members of the committee. Some of you have been around long enough to have seen this presentation before, so bear with me as we get through this, but I appreciate the opportunity to come and speak with you this afternoon, and thank you for your service. It's not often that we can find folks to sit on these commissions, committees, and boards, and so thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules to help on this committee. So this afternoon, we're going to talk a little bit about, once the PowerPoint gets up, the purpose of this committee and how this committee should conduct its meetings consistent with California law. Can you help me advance the slides? This doesn't seem to be working. No, this is the only one, and it's not doing anything. Oh, here we go. Well, no, you moved something.
We have it up there.
Sorry for the technical difficulties.
It's okay.
Let me go to Excel. What happened here? Okay, I guess you have to click it. Click it like strong.
Just have to really press it hard, I guess.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so just by way of background, the PCAC was formed back in 1994, and it originated out of a discussion between the city and community members who had some concerns about the relationship between the police department and the community. It was primarily focused around community-oriented policing, which is now part of the Salinas Police Department's fabric. It's something that they do. It's part of their policies and procedures. So the PCAC has changed over the years, but that's how it originally got started, by council action. In May of this year, however, the city council took action to make the PCAC more aligned with the other commissions, committees, and boards. And so the council made some amendments to the municipal code, and it also clarified the meeting frequency and the terms for this committee. So there are 7 members, and that was determined way back in 2015, actually, with each of you appointed by the council members at large. Previous to May of this year, committee members were appointed by district, with the mayor's appointment being made at large. The city council changed that in May to where the appointments could be made at large from any resident from any district by the individual council members. The one thing that's remained the same is that each of you, prior to coming onto this committee, is subject to a background check. That's something that's been in place since 1994. That's not new. It's been around for a while. The city council determined that your meetings should be monthly, and so you'll be meeting with the police chief on a monthly basis. And you're now subject to the uniform bylaws that all of the other commissions, committees, and boards are now subject to. Prior to May, the PCAC had its own unique set of bylaws, which were somewhat problematic with some of their provisions. And so as a part of a review effort, the city council determined that the uniform bylaws should be applied to this body as well. So as we've seen a few minutes ago, you have a new chair and a vice chair, and those are elected annually. They're limited to 2 consecutive terms, as we just experienced. The executive secretary, the person who prepares the agenda, is your police chief. So for each of your monthly meetings, the police chief will determine what it is he wants to speak with this committee about, of course, with input that he receives from this body. There's an item on your agenda that's called committee members' reports. It's at that point where you'll raise some issues of concern that your community members have raised with you. You'll share those with the police chief, and he'll consider whether those get put on the agenda or not. But it is the police chief's discretion to set the agenda for these meetings. All of the commissions, committees, and boards have a minimum of 75% attendance required. If you don't meet that threshold, the city council can remove you from the committee, regardless of whichever mayor or council member appointed you. Just for purposes of taking action, a quorum is required for the meeting to occur in the first place, and a quorum is required for any action to occur, and a majority of the quorum is required for any vote that occurs. So for example, if there are 5 of you, that's a quorum because there are 7 members. It would only require 3 affirmative votes in order for an item to move forward. So building on the history from 1994, if we can get there. When the City Council acted in May, they revised the city code to establish what the duties and the scope of the authority of the PCAC are. It's to review police service delivery relevant to community needs, provide input on programs, and advise the City Council and the Police Department about community relations strategies. So this gets back to the original concept in 1994 of having a tie between the community and the police department directly through this PCAC. That's how the body was intended to work in 1994, and that's how it's intended to work now. You're representatives of the community, and you bring forward your concerns and their concerns to the police chief for consideration. Moving on to state law. You're subject to a couple of pieces of state law as a legislative body. The Brown Act is what regulates how these meetings are conducted. All of your business needs to be conducted open and publicly, with the exception of closed sessions, which for the PCAC has never occurred, but it could occur. What I provided there is a link for you to Cal City's brochure, for lack of a better term, on the Brown Act. It's a summary of the requirements, and if you're interested in reading more about it, you can take a look at that there, but we'll talk a little bit more about some of the basics in a minute. But the other thing that I wanted to mention that we're not necessarily going to discuss this afternoon is the Public Records Act. So any records that are created by the city, that includes city staff, that includes council members, that includes you all as committee members, that pertain to committee business, are public records. So any emails that you send on your personal email accounts that pertain to PCAC business are considered public record and would have to be disclosed upon request. So it's really important that you keep in mind what you put in writing. If you don't want it disclosed, then don't put it in writing, is essentially the upshot of that conversation. But as a member of this legislative body, which is the Police Community Advisory Committee, your records are subject to production as public records. So as I mentioned, you're a legislative body, and under the Brown Act, legislative bodies are required to have all of their decision-making occur in public meetings. It's important to remember that this body is not a decision-making body in the sense that you will make or take actions that will be the final decisions. You're advisory. You serve in an advisory role to the police chief and ultimately then to the city council. So you may take action on items, but those actions will be recommendations to the police chief, recommendations to the city council or the city manager or city staff, but they will not be the final action on anything that comes before you because you're in an advisory capacity only. Because you were established in 1994 by action of the City Council, you are therefore a legislative body and subject to the Brown Act. Now that's to be distinguished from a committee or a board, for example, that's created or established by the mayor. The mayor has the authority to do so under the code, and so the mayor can establish ad hoc committees, which would not then be created by the City Council and would therefore not be legislative bodies. So I wanted to make sure to create that distinction. But this body clearly is, and all of your meetings will be conducted consistent with the Brown Act. So meetings are situations involving a quorum of you. And so a majority of you cannot get together at any point and talk about committee business outside of these open and public meetings. So you can't go to Starbucks, for example, and 4 of you hang out and start talking about what should be on the next PCAC agenda or other issues that relate to the PCAC because those meetings need to occur here. Serial meetings are a way for 4 or more of you to have a conversation, not in the same room necessarily, but sequentially one after the other. And where we see this happen a lot is in emails, where one committee member emails a second committee member, and then that second committee member decides to loop in a couple of other committee members. And so by virtue of just emails, you can be creating a meeting inadvertently when 4 or more of you are on that email string. We've seen this happen a few times with the city council and some of the commissions. It's problematic because what happens then when that occurs is we need to surface that in a public meeting and have a conversation about that in the public and essentially cure and correct that Brown Act violation. So I would just be very, very careful about communicating with each other via email. As I mentioned before, your private email accounts, if you're discussing PCAC business, those emails would be subject to disclosure. It's perfectly appropriate for you all to communicate directly with the police chief and his staff, the city manager, the city attorney, about any questions or concerns that you have. Those sorts of communications would not be considered Brown Act or meeting issues. They would still be considered public records, but not necessarily establishing a meeting. A few years ago, the state adopted Assembly Bill 992, which pertains to social media. And what this legislation did was bring social media into the realm of public meetings. So if you are, for example, on Instagram posting about PCAC or something related to your role as a committee member, other members of this body should not be commenting on those posts, because if 4 or more of you do so, that could be considered a meeting as well. So just be careful about what you post online on Facebook and Instagram or elsewhere. Even a thumbs up or a like could be considered commenting on that post and could create a meeting. And so let's just avoid that if possible. I'm not saying don't post on your social media, just be careful about how many of you are also commenting on those things. So there are occasions where all of you or 4 or more of you can get together and have conversations, and those are at educational conferences, like Cal Cities puts on a number of conferences for commission members and committee members. Would encourage you to seek out those opportunities when they're present. Social or ceremonial events like swearing-ins at the police department, promotion ceremonies at the police department, it's perfectly appropriate for all of you to go to those. Just don't talk about PCAC business, right? So don't avoid coming to city council meetings or going to other things that the city puts on. Just make sure that a majority or more of you is not getting together and talking about PCAC business. So the Brown Act requires that all of our meetings be noticed with all of the items that we want to discuss listed on that agenda. You cannot discuss anything that's not on the agenda. As I mentioned just briefly before, you have a section on your agenda that's titled Committee Members' Reports. Certainly appropriate to bring up your concerns and your questions to the chief and his staff at that time. We cannot have discussion about those items, but you can certainly surface those for the chief's consideration, and he may choose to put those on an agenda at a future date. All of the agendas need to be posted 72 hours in advance, and the purpose of this is to inform the public of what you're going to be talking about. So that way, if they're interested, they can come in or Zoom in and join in that conversation. That's basically the impetus behind the Brown Act. There are some limited exceptions to where we can add things on the agenda last minute. We've had that with the council a few times where things come up after the agenda has been posted and during the meeting, and we have to take action on those things. It's very rare, but it does occur, and it can occur. You need to make sure that you allow public comment on all of the items on the agenda. You need to offer an opportunity for the public to come up and talk about whatever they want to talk about that's related to the city or the PCAC during your general public comments. Let's see. There are penalties for violating the Brown Act. There are criminal penalties if something like this gets referred over to the district attorney's office, and they'll do their investigation to determine whether or not a violation has occurred. There are also civil remedies that will apply to the individuals who violate the Brown Act. So the conduct of your meeting, and I've given you a few handouts. I don't know if you have them on the dais, but they were certainly attached with the agenda. The City Council and all of its commissions, committees, and boards are subject to Robert's Rules of Order, and those are the parliamentary procedures by which business is conducted. What I provided you is something called Rosenberg's Rules of Order. It's a modernized, simplified version of Robert's Rules, and this is the one that I would suggest you reading and referring to. It's, I think, 8 pages long, so it's quite short, but it does very well summarize the parliamentary procedures under Robert's Rules of Order. So I would encourage you to familiarize yourself with that. On the dais, I've also included, there should be on the dais or in the drawers, it's a sheet that looks like this. It has some blue print on it, and this is a cheat sheet, for lack of a better term, on how to make motions and when motions are appropriate and what types of motions are appropriate and who may make them. Again, this was us going through Robert's Rules of Order and Rosenberg's Rules of Order and trying to summarize the types of motions we see on a regular basis so that's easy for you all to just grab that and say, this is what I'm thinking, can I do it? And then take action. The chairperson is the person who controls these meetings, just like the mayor does. And so before speaking or before asking your questions or making a motion, you need to wait until the chair calls on you. It's now Chair De La Rosa's responsibility to manage these meetings and make sure that they function and run efficiently. He's going to set the order for speaking by calling on the individual committee members and also calling on the members of the public to come and speak during public comment. All of your votes need to be cast by roll call, and our support staff here does a very good job of that. The other piece of information I put on the dais or attached in your packets is ethics laws principles. As public officials, you are now subject to all of the ethics regulations that the state has put out. Again, I provided you a short summary of those ethics rules that all of us need to abide by. And the rules of decorum are something which also regulate how these meetings occur. Not necessarily how the meetings flow, but how you behave and act during the meetings. So the rules of decorum were established by the city council. Those are on your dais, and they establish certain criteria by which all of us need to comport ourselves during these meetings and the potential violations for not doing so. So I would familiarize myself with those if I were you. These are currently going under review by a committee of the council members, and so we anticipate that a revised set of rules of decorum will come out within the next couple of months, and when they do, we'll come back to this committee, have a conversation about the revised rules so that you're aware of them as well. Two more things I want to mention before we wrap up. This is the city seal and the city logo. The city logo is on the top left-hand side, and the city seal is on the bottom right-hand side. The city seal on the bottom right-hand side is for official city business only. What that means is official documents that are put up by the city, letters from the city manager, letters from the city council, letters from the city attorney. The logo is something that is more representative of the day-to-day activities of the city and not necessarily official documents. So you'll see the logo, for example, on our webpage. You'll see the logo, for example, on the city's social media sites. And I wanted to raise these two things because it's important that you not use them in your communications. You not put them on flyers. You not put them on your social media. They are trademarked, and they require the city manager and the city clerk to approve your use of them before doing so. So know that they're out there, and just know that you can't use them unless you get approval to do so. We've had issues where folks have used those in the past, and we've asked them to stop because there are penalties if you fail to do so. It's actually a misdemeanor. So with that, I'm available for any questions. I know that this is a high-level discussion of some of these more complicated discussion items. So if you have any questions tonight, feel free to ask them. Otherwise, you can certainly give me a call, email me, and I'm happy to discuss any of this at any time with any of you. So Chair, it's all yours.
Committee members, starting from her right, do you have any questions for our attorney?
Yes, so City Attorney, you mentioned that the items on the agenda are going to basically be funneled through the chief. Is there indeed a process for committee members or community members to then interact with the chief to be able to bring up items to be discussed on the agenda? Is that something that we as commissioners should be privy to, that process as well?
Absolutely. So on your committee members' reports portion of the agenda, you can bring up items that you would like to see on a future agenda. It doesn't take any more than one of you to raise that issue. But again, the chief sets the agenda. So if it doesn't show up on the next agenda, it's not because he doesn't necessarily want to have a conversation about it. It may be because it's going to take some time to get prepared to have that discussion. So that's the point at which I would encourage you to bring up those requests. And members of the community can certainly communicate with you about items that they're interested in, and you can bring those forward, or they can communicate directly with the chief and his staff. You're welcome.
Next, Betsy.
Nothing from me except for thank you. Wonderful presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation. No questions.
Thank you, I'm good.
Thank you.
I did have a question. I'm very active in Neighborhood Watch for District 6, and we have meetings maybe every other month with the residents. Right, okay. Yes, so I'm very active with Neighborhood Watch. How does that, is that going to be a problem with Neighborhood Watch and the police advisory unless, if I don't disclose what's already public here, can we discuss some of the police issues with the, I would assume that's part of our role, to get information from the residents as to what problems we're having in the neighborhood. So I would assume that I would get that information and either email or speak to the chief. Is that right? Any issues of concerns, or how do I deal with it, being involved in both Neighborhood Watch and Police Advisory?
So remain involved. You can continue to be involved in your Neighborhood Watch. I would encourage you to continue to do that. You can certainly have those conversations among your Neighborhood Watch members and the community about issues of concern that they have with respect to public safety. It's entirely appropriate to do that, and you can certainly bring those questions, comments, and concerns forward through your role as a committee member and directly to the chief.
So not directly with my district, it would be to the chief if it's a police issue.
Right, well, you can continue to have those conversations with your district, and by that I assume you mean your council member.
Council member.
Yes, you can certainly communicate directly with your council member about these issues, and I would encourage you to do so.
Okay.
So that they're aware of what you're doing, what's going on in the community, especially because you're a PCAC committee member now. And you can also bring those issues and questions up at this body through your comments to the chief.
Okay, and I also belong to a Neighborhood Watch group that we do meet at Starbucks once a week. And so we discuss issues, and one of them is a commissioner. So we keep our issues separate unless I'm working with this commissioner and he's traffic and transportation, and I'm in the advisory commission, the police advisory. So do we keep those issues separate, or can we still talk about traffic? And can I still talk to them about police?
You can
things?
continue to have those conversations. Nothing about being on this committee stops you from having those conversations. It becomes problematic when there's a majority of these members here
Others.
discussing those PCAC-related items, right? So continue to have those conversations at Starbucks with the traffic commissioner and others about matters that concern you all.
Okay. Now, the last thing is, I don't know, I think the only one I really know is Leo, and I don't know anybody else. I've never met them before. Is there something that we can do so we can agree to meet with each other? Just to know who they are and, you know, what they've done and, you know, that, how they serve the city, or would that be considered inappropriate?
So all 7 of you can get together at that Starbucks and get to know each other and talk about your children, talk about, you know, the weather.
Okay.
Talk about anything that's not related to PCAC business, right? So if you wanted to have a party at your house, Committee Member Hayes, and invite everybody here, it's entirely appropriate to do so, so long as you talk about things other than PCAC
Okay,
business.
got it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Because I would like to get to know everybody.
Sounds like an invitation.
It is. You were invited as well.
I'll be there.
So were you, Chief, and Assistant Chief. Thank you. Those are all my
Thank you.
comments and questions.
No, thank you for the presentation. I don't have any questions.
Thank you.
Okay, now we go to the public. Any comments from the public? None? Okay. Back to my right, committee members, do you have any comments?
I actually do have a comment. So we know that the chief you just started not too long ago, there were the coffee with the cop kind of events. I don't know if we have had or if you have had any introduction to the community outside of this body. Do you foresee those kinds of events happening? Kind of going back to what Commissioner Hayes was talking about, neighborhood watch, meetings at Starbucks.
Yeah, thank you. So great question, and good evening, everybody. Committee Chair and PCAC members, City Attorney, members of the public. Chief Carlos Acosta here. So yes, great question. We have had a couple of events in Coffee with a Cop. I attended one not too long ago. And one of the priorities as a police chief is that we build relational equity. And that means meeting with all of our community members, whether it's community organizations, high schools, businesses, Rotary, Rancho Cielo High School, you name it. So we do actively do participate in conversations with the community to get to know them.
I just want to step in quickly as co-chair that just moved from chair because I know Leah's new in the role, but I want to ensure when we're going through each item that we're clear. So this item, the questions and comments are relative to the presentation in which we just received. So any questions or comments should pertain to the Brown Act and the presentation that we received. And then at the end, we'll have the committee comments and questions. And at that point is when we will address future agenda items or any questions that we have that are not related to each presentation that we'll receive. Thank you. Oh, and then just one other little side note. On your microphone, there's a small gray button at the bottom, and we need to turn that on. I know everybody in the room can hear us, but we are online as well, and if we're not turning that on, they can't hear us online. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Down the line. Yolanda?
Just how much can you put on social media? Obviously, I report on issues that are happening in my neighborhood. Would that be considered, like, for example, a few years back, we had a bombing in our neighborhood, and I posted it on, of course, I was a neighborhood watch then. I posted it on Facebook, and one of our commander that was responsible for our area commented on that post saying that I was misinformed, that there was no warning. If it wasn't for video that we had taken of the house on fire with the bombings, I would have been back then. But we had this information. So how much information can we put on social media? Because there was a bombing, there was a big fire, a 2-story house, and I had to meet with the mayor and the assistant city mayor and the commander at that time. So the police at that time made me look like I was not credible. And again, if it wasn't for the video showing the fire, nobody would know. It wasn't reported anywhere. So I don't want to say Mrs. Kravitz about that, but I am very, very committed to my neighborhood. And I think people need to know what's going on in the neighborhood. And that is both fire and police because it was denied. So.
Okay, so I'm certainly open to having an offline conversation with you about social media posts, but just to sort of bring it back to this discussion, there isn't anything about our discussion this afternoon that prevents any of you from posting on social media. That wasn't the point of raising that. It was just to make sure that you don't accidentally create a meeting by commenting on each other's posts on social media. So post what you feel is appropriate. It's your social media account. You own it. You're responsible for what you post on there. But again, the comment and what I was recommending was you not comment on each other's posts as they relate to PCAC business. But okay, so Chair, if there are any other questions, otherwise we will recommend that we move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the chief's report, I believe.
Yeah. No, thank you. We'll go now to our chief
Great,
report.
thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, City Attorney. Again, good evening, Community Chair. Congratulations, De La Rosa. I'm really excited to be here. I want to first commend you for your civic duty and being involved with the police department and our local organizations of how we can collectively work together to really have a vibrant, safe, and a prosperous city. So again, as I mentioned earlier, Carlos Acosta, your Chief of Police here in Salinas, and I'll briefly going to get into my report. Again, as mentioned, some of our priorities are relational equity and community engagement, as we start to really get involved with our community in all facets in a non-enforcement capacity, whether it's schools, businesses, all of the organizations in our community, developing our workforce. We have been doing a fantastic job here at the police department, but it is not a secret that we are down several positions and officers. So we're doing our very best to making sure that we have a robust recruiting unit and team to build the organization to the capacity that I think we need to be. And then training and excellence, we're always focusing on workforce development, organizational wellness, training, and building future successful police supervisors and leaders here within the organization. Staffing levels, as you can see here, it's 144 sworn positions that are filled. Out of those, we have 7 currently in the police academy, and we are authorized 161, and we are currently 13 openings. And if you can see the number to the right, it says 17. Technically, it is 13, but 4 of those positions are frozen at this time. Professional staff, again, 44 professional staff members. And right now we have 0 positions frozen, and number of positions to hire for, again, is a pretty critical number, which is 11 positions. And here's what a really good graph to kind of look at that really illustrates what our numbers look like starting in January 1st of the year 2020. And then if you want to take a look at the blue line, and that really sort of depicts where we're at. We had 48 officers, in 1 of 20, and then here we are at the last count, which is July 23, which is today, 137 officers. Now, if you go up maybe 6 or 7 columns, you'll see the number that I just talked about in the previous slide, which is 144. After you minus the 7 recruits in the academy, another 11 of those recruits in the training program, and then 12 department members that are on light duty, injury, or other reasons, brings us back to the original 13 openings. So really, fully trained officers on duty out of that 144 is actually 114. And as you can see, 4 or 5 years ago, we were at 129. Sworn representation, which is something that I think the Salinas Police Department is certainly really proud of. 23 female officers, 15 of those sworn positions. A national average is about 13%. Spanish-speaking officers, we have 69 Spanish-speaking officers, which includes recruits, which represents 48% of our sworn positions. And the number here is just to give you a perspective. In the year 2000, we had 5 Spanish speakers here. So 25 years later, we have 69. Our homicide solve rate, and this is 66.7%. And as you can see, from 2016 to just last year, 1 homicide is too many. This is a chart that, to me, is something that we really need to closely look at. But 36 homicides in 2016. Last year, in 2024, we finished at an 18-year low with 6 homicides. The national average homicide rate is about 57.8%. Priorities moving forward, I talked a little bit about that in my opening statement, but recruitment and retention, we're really trying to build a robust team here with new ideas such as an oral board work assessment center where we actually bring people from the community, open up our police department, show them and the duties and responsibilities and really give them a tour of the police department, introduce them to the field, how to take a police exam. We did that. We're working with iHeartRadio and attending as many community events as we can. Just to give you an example, we had a career day at Rancho Cielo High School where we were able to meet community members, specifically high school students, introduce them to this career, and also probation, CHP, and other law enforcement agencies were there as well. Focusing on organizational wellness is a real priority for us as well. I'll talk a little bit about what we have done up to this point within the agency and what we're going to do moving forward. And then, of course, community engagement. I talked about school presentations that we do, meeting with our schools, whether it's International Women's Day at a high school, again, attending a career day, doing workplace violence or anti-bullying presentations is always a priority for our agency. Again, building those relationships that are fostering existing relationships that are really founded on mutual respect and trust with us, the police department, and the community. And then our youth program is something we're really, really proud of here at the police department. We have a cadet program that I'll talk a lot about because I'm really, really proud of what our team has done with fostering that engagement with youth. And then our youth diversionary program as well. Okay, we talked about recruiting and retention. I'm happy to report that since I was hired in November of 2024, we have hired 7 lateral candidates. I guess I'm one of those candidates. I'm considered a lateral candidate. And right now we currently have 70 recruits in the police academy. Again, working on retention, right? Understanding organizational wellness, workflows, balance, development and encouragement and opportunity within the organization, I think is key to retention. So that's obviously a major focal point. And then working on professional development as well. Again, I mentioned organizational wellness. We're really focusing on expanding it and educating our peer support team. We're also building a chaplaincy program and a peer support team for our department members, which includes our professional staff. Wellness training, we've been very fortunate to have many keynote speakers and really renowned people in the profession that are helping us with emotional survival for law enforcement. Was one speaker, Dr. Gil Martin, who is a renowned psychologist. And then we had Dr. Steve James that really focuses on sleep study, how it affects law enforcement professionals. Nutrition, injury prevention, mental performance, and those are some of the things that we're looking at when we're working on wellness within the organization. Again, I mentioned community engagement, and our community engagement team should be a team of minimum of 7 to 10. We have 2, and they do an absolutely incredible, amazing job. To give you an example, in 2024, we had 102 presentations and events, which included over 19,000 contacts. I don't want to say, but I believe in 2023, it was maybe a quarter of those numbers. So we are really trying to be intentional in reaching our community and establishing those incredible relationships that I think are critical to working together with our community. Youth Cadet Program, I talked a little bit about. So our cadets have dedicated over 1,200 hours of working in community events in 2024. We had our first ever cadet recognition dinner and gala on March of 25, and we had over 20 cadets. And I believe our program has been around in existence for over 40, 50 years. So we just had our first recognition event. And recently added 15 cadets, and this is a stat that I love to talk about because it's really important. So we now have 35 cadets, and we talked about building relationships, introducing them to our profession. We're really building on those critical skills, whether it's writing, public speaking, networking. Salinas Police Department has more cadets than 72% of Monterey County Police Agency have police officers. Think about that. So we have more police officers in King City, Sand City, Delray Oaks, Carmel by the Sea, and we have cadets. So, and they do a fantastic job. If you didn't notice, this past weekend is one of our grand events, and they were all over volunteering their hours and being really intentional with our community. Again, the youth programs, we have a youth diversion program that we're certainly proud of, to making sure that we allow our department to work closely with communities, especially our youth, their families, schools, etc. We have 6 that are enrolled, 5 are pending enrollment, and 3 are under evaluation, and 5 youth have graduated. I received a letter about a month and a half ago, which I won't get into, but it's very personal to the youth and myself, really reminded me why I love to do what I do. So we're really making an impact with our kids. Youth and Family Services, 20 youth and family service referred to this. And then again, we provided that linkage to services with education and advocacy to making sure the family and our youth get what they need to move forward. And a couple last things before we really get into the questions and comments, but I wanted to remind you that we have our National Night Out, which is an enormous, incredible event done nationally. It will be hosted at our Salinas Sportsplex on Tuesday, August 5th from 5 to 7:30 p.m. And this is where we really, truly build these relationships. I'm hopeful to have over 30 to 40 Salinas Police Department members, including professional staff. We'll have activities, games, resource booths, and food trucks. Will be really a fun time. And our city attorney mentioned that you are certainly welcome, and I want to personally invite you that we had one of the largest promotions and movements within the organization in the last year or so, and we're going to have a ceremony here at the Rotunda on Friday, August 1st at 1 p.m. to recognize the newly promoted Assistant Chief, Commander, and Sergeants and other key positions. So thank you. That's all I have, and I appreciate your time. Unless you have any questions, I'm here.
I have a quick question.
Yes.
Can you repeat the time of the Friday, August 1st?
Oh, okay. It's at 1 p.m. here at the Rotunda, again, Friday, August 1st for our promotional ceremony.
Well, okay, we'll bring this back.
I have seen a difference, Mr. Kramer, and I know people that I'm just so happy that you're here. Back in the day, I first started attending meetings when the DOJ came and did an investigation in Salinas County, and there are a lot of people that used to complain about the police. I've heard very positive things, response time. So thank you for the presentation. Thank you for what you're doing, and I know you're going to achieve great results. Assistant Chief Bravo, it's great to meet you. I know you're going to be a big asset to our city. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Hayes.
Thank you for your presentation. I'm really proud of our police department and the things that we do. We travel a lot, and I always see, here when we're doing events, when we're hosting things, we have a big presence, whether it's the cadets, and I think that community involvement is big, and I think that it's really starting to change things for the city, and the commitment is very impressive, so thank you for that. Also seeing, in 2020, having only 5 Spanish-speaking officers, I would never believe that. I mean, of course, it's factual, but, if you were just told that. So improving to 69 is huge, especially because of our residents and how important that is. And then seeing the homicides trending downward is really a great thing to see. So hopefully we can keep that up. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Miller.
Yes, on that Spanish-speaking officers, do you test for proficiency, or how is that determined?
It's an independent test that's done through HR, and they have to go and get professionally certified. Yeah.
Thank you. On the youth programs, the diversion programs, I know that these were originally started through a CalVIP grant in 2022, maybe 2023, I can't remember, and it took a while for them to onboard. I know that the program transitioned a couple of times where there were adjustments to it. As far as the numbers listed on here, are those year-to-date, or are they from, I believe it's based on just my recollection of the August meeting of last year, I think that's when it launched or it was put into place. So are these engagement numbers year to date or from that point forward?
I think Tanya Erickson.
Yes.
Is a very important part of our agency, can answer that question.
Hi, I'm Tanya Erickson, Police Service Administrator. So there are two numbers there. The first is the Youth and Family Support Services. That's a cumulative number. We first started that in April of 2024, and since that time have assisted, I think it was 30, was it 20 families? Thank you, 20 families with that. That is separate and distinct from our youth diversion program. Our youth diversion program started in January of 2025, and those are our current numbers. We currently have 6 enrolled. We currently have 5 pending enrollment. We're just waiting for the diversion meeting to sign their contract. 3 that are under evaluation, and 5 have graduated, and that's since January. So,
Thank you. Now, since these were originally funded through a grant, and I believe that that grant ended in June, correct?
So the grant actually was extended until December 31st. As part of this year, the fiscal year 25-26 budget, the city has made 2 of the 3 positions permanent. So the administrative analyst and the community outreach assistant, who are doing all of the work for both community engagement and youth diversion, those positions were made permanent effective July 1st. So
And then
they
there
will
was-
move on in perpetuity. We had a 3rd position that was never able to be filled. And we are still exploring opportunities to still add that 3rd position. We will quickly reach capacity with only 2 staff doing all diversion and all community engagement. So the success we've seen with youth diversion, it's very important for us to be able to make sure that we maintain our staffing and that we don't ever wind up in a place where we can't offer services to an eligible youth or family. So we're actively working on that right now.
And the team that was presented at the August meeting, is that the same team that's in
It is the
place
same
now?
team, correct.
Great, congrats. The only other, on the homicide rate, or solve rate, what are the biggest contributors to that, would you say? Is it like a technology-based assistance? Is it community response?
I think it's all of the above. You know, I think that we've built a relationship with this community, as Ms. Hayes mentioned, that it's founded on trust, right? Are they willing to be a witness? Are they willing to call the police? Are they willing to share the technology that they have in their residence, and also the technology that we've implemented within this city, which allows us to identify and apprehend individuals that are committing crime, not just homicides. And our officers are out there. Okay, our officers are being visible, they're being present in key areas that have been prone to violence in the past. Our investigators are doing an incredible job making sure that they are compiling and recognizing the evidence and all of the case investigative work that needs to go into an investigation to make sure that we are presenting a packet to the district attorney's office that's going to allow us to obviously have a filing and be able to solve that homicide. But I think it's all of the above. And these are the things that I'm certainly proud of. And it should be noted that in 2025, you know, we have 1 homicide. So 1 homicide, in my opinion, is too many, but we are trending in the right direction. But I think this is why it's important to have all of the right pieces in place when it comes to staffing and resources to making sure that we continue that trend.
Definitely. Huge kudos. I mean, I grew up in Salinas in the 90s, went to high school in the 90s. So even 10 years from now, it was a completely different environment here. So great. And the only last question is, I love the wellness aspect to your training, wellness trainings to your officers. I think it's super important that their mental, their physical is addressed. Just as a suggestion, maybe extending that to family relationships, or I don't know if it already is part of the package. I know that having a family member who's a police officer, sworn officer, is straining to family relationships, so that would be a great add-on service, if not yet provided.
Thank you, and great comment, and it is actually provided. So we focus on the individual, their families, and their needs. And when we look at wellness as an organization, sometimes it has nothing to do with their profession and other things that may be contributing to their workflows and balance. So we'd like to take a broader approach when it comes to wellness of our employees. And we also focus on our professional staff as well.
Thank you. Those are all my questions.
Thank you, Chief. Wonderful presentation, visuals as well. Just On the community engagement, you said you have 2 staff members, permanent staff members. Have you considered maybe bringing in, training volunteers that could also help your department out so you can expand further?
Yeah, well, when I say we have, as Tanya Erickson mentioned, 2 dedicated, but our police officers, it's department-centric of what their priorities are. When it comes to community engagement, we obviously know that our police officers have to respond to calls for service and high-level emergencies, but they're also doing that on their days off. They're doing that in between shifts, in between their daily activities when not responding to calls or conducting investigations or interviews or working at your local school. Excuse me, not working at the school, but they're doing a presentation there. They're actively engaged in a community perspective. And to me, community engagement is having a conversation with our community members in a non-enforcement capacity, right? Being able to have dialogue about what are the things and the challenges that they face and what they want to see in their police department, really providing guidance and direction and being a resource. When you don't have to call them to do that, you can obviously do that when the time is present. Volunteers, we do have some volunteers. We look at our cadet programs, we have other volunteers. We have a fantastic volunteer, by the way, who's been here for years. But we've entertained that, we've looked at that, but it's also important that when we look at these key positions that we don't want to necessarily community engage for now. We need to community engage in everything we do at every possible level, whether you're a CSO, a police officer, or the police chief. That's sort of the vision that I'm making sure that we follow, is to be community engagement needs to be department-centric. And we've done a really, really good job of that. So that's something we'll actually look at and consider.
And then the police cadets, I love that there's the high number you have. How many of those, or in the past, have you seen them move on or probably, go into the police academy as a pipeline?
Oh, there have been several. One I will talk about, he was recently promoted to the rank of sergeant. He started out as a CSA, We've also had cadets that also started out, and I believe there's several of them, and not only have they been incredible police officers, they've also become mentors in the cadet program. So there are leaders in this cadet program to set the example. I once was somebody like you who was interested in the career and was able to do all of the right things, get the right coaching, and the studies in the right direction, and here we are. So yeah, we've had quite a few stories that we're certainly proud of here within the agency.
Thank you. And just, kudos on the fact of how many law enforcement you have that are bilingual. Are you, sir, as well?
I'm absolutely bilingual. That was my first language.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for the presentation. I have a few questions / comments. I wanted to know, aside from Spanish, do you have any other languages that have been noted that officers speak? For example, Filipino or Vietnamese that also reflect the demographics of the city?
We do. I don't have those specific numbers, but we do have officers that speak other languages. And that's one of the things that we want to do as the organization. Is the organization, the police department, needs to reflect the community it serves. And quite frankly, when we are recruiting, we want to recruit the best police officer to come here. And we certainly would love to have more female officers, more officers speak Vietnamese or other specific languages. I don't have that, but I know we do have officers who speak.
Some of them do.
Yes.
And then are there any officers that also speak the Triqui language? I know that we have a large population here in Salinas, which is...
That is a good question. That I don't know.
Okay. All right. Some good information, though. So just looking at the demographics within the force would be nice to also know not just women, maybe breaking it down by ethnicity, breaking it down by those who were born and raised here. Of course, the officers who identify this as their community are going to serve and protect with a particular mindset, but they're also invested, right, in the livelihood. That would be some tips, or maybe if we could see that in the next annual report. I love that you all are doing these trainings. I wanted to circle back regarding officers trained in mental health and crisis response tactics. I know that there was talks way before you came here, sir, giving officers some skills on how to, also what Mr. Peterson was speaking to, folks with disabilities, folks with severe acute mental health, how to address those situations in the community. Do you know if maybe that's something that's coming up later on down the line, or if there was actual training?
That's a very important part of the police officers' training and education, whether it's through the academy when it comes to de-escalation. But one of the things that I wanted to focus on was making sure that every Salinas Police Department member, meaning the officers on the sworn side, have crisis intervention training, which is a highly skilled training. It's a 40-hour school where every officer understands the characteristics and attributes of somebody who's dealing with mental illness, who might be in crisis, whether that's an autistic 10-year-old or somebody who's dealing with disabilities or can't hear, the variety of different things that they learn. So out of the 144 officers that we described, we probably are about the 92 to 94% of all of them being trained in this specific training. So I really believe that having this type of training allows us to be able to identify these key things when somebody in our community is dealing with mental illness. But more importantly, how we can help them. 27 years ago when I started this job, there was one place to take somebody who was in crisis. Now we have a crisis team through the county that helps us. We have officers that are specially trained with de-escalation skills. And we really are intentional in helping that family, because we know that this individual that is in crisis, the entire family needs resources. How do we help them? How do we engage with those family members to making sure that we, the police department, is not coming back to deal with this individual solely based on a mental health situation? So our goal, my goal as a police chief, is to make sure that every sworn department member is 100% trained. Now that's logistically, it's really difficult to do that, but we're trying really, really hard. We're about the 92, 93%, and that's really high in compared to a lot of other agencies and cities. So we think it's important that when we deal our community, that we're as trained as possible to making sure that we can identify the difference between somebody who is in crisis or somebody who is in a critical situation that needs help, or that we can actually, number one, de-escalate the situation to the safest possible outcome, and then provide them the resources they need if there is no criminal nexus to this individual or why we're there in the first place. So that's going to be one of our priorities, is to making sure every officer's CIT trained.
Okay, thank you for your response. And then second to last, the annual report. We usually get a breakdown with all the statistics of kind of like dispatch themes, how many theft, how many, I know that things have changed in the department as far as what police officers will actually show up and respond to in person, but when is that going to be out for this previous year for 2024?
So the report is actually out. All of you can read it and take a look at it. It's on our police department website.
Okay.
So there you could see the annual reports for 2024 and the one before that as well. It's a great report, and I would recommend potentially, it's not a bad idea to put that on the agenda so that we can actually take a look at that report and answer any questions you have, but it is readily available for you to read now if you'd like.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Okay. Okay, at this time, public comments?
Mayor? I don't need to bring my own notes. There's plenty of notes here. Name is Eric Peterson, and just to give you an idea of what Chief Acosta is up against, when I was first appointed to PCAC in November 1996, we had over 180 officers. And my recollection, this differs from some, but my recollection is we actually hit maximum authorized strength of 187 once for one day, then somebody quit. And the other thing is I noticed in a presentation the other day, there are also fewer per shift. And there were nights I did ride-alongs where we went from call to call to call to call. And I would hate to see what it would be like with fewer police to do that. And one other memory, we were talking about bilingual police, is Chief, he left, but there was a now retired police officer named Zubiotti who was bilingual. And I did a ride along with him where we went from translation to translation to translation because he was the only bilingual officer. And speaking of bilingual officers, I understand you've got John Butts doing things. That's good. Thank you.
That's it? Thank you. Okay, now we will go to, does anyone here in the committee have any future agenda items that they would like to request? Or any reports from districts? Yes, what?
Just if we can get a list of upcoming dates, events that you'd like support on so that we can calendar them. A list of dates and events coming up that, you know, that the police department would like support in.
My only request would be to have a presentation of the annual report, maybe at the next meeting. That would be helpful to see what other themes have been coming up with dispatch and calls. Thank you.
I would like to bring up, just so that it's not forgotten before, committee member Eddie, who's no longer here, had requested the unhoused population be added to the agenda. I think a report on how the unhoused are, or any cases, treatment, complaints, inquiries, I believe that's. And I'm referencing back the August meeting where she requested that. I heard about ride-alongs, and I don't know if there's a specific process to request a ride-along for us newbies. Maybe that would be nice. And on the last meeting, the August meeting, the acting Chief Murray had brought up a couple of proposals that were up or that he was going to present on to the city council beginning in September, maybe just a result of those. I believe some of those were grants, and some of those were like requests for new vehicles, just to check them off the list.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to see something on gangs. I'd like to see, I know a few years back, there was a presentation that was done on symbols and what they meant, gestures and what those mean. And how can we convert some of these gang members to possibly even be interested in the police versus against them? I currently have six or seven friends that apparently I just found out were gang members. And so I'd like to recruit them and talk to them as to how they can possibly help us eliminate gangs. And these are kids that are from 13 through maybe 16 or 17, and they're called the North Salinas LOCS, LOCS. And these are the kids that ride around in bicycles. So I'd like to know more about that, if there's any information that you might be able to share with us in a future meeting. I'd really like to recruit some of those kids because we're going to lose them if we don't recruit them and turn them around. I invite them to church every Sunday, and to help me with the garden to see if I can get through to them. So I'm very pleased and happy that they respect me, and they talk to me. So I just tell them, just think of me as your grandma. That kind of works. But I would like to see something on gangs. Thank you.
Any? No? Well, thank you, Chief, for your report. I don't have anything at the moment myself, but next time, maybe.
Okay, thank you, and we'll see you at the next meeting. Hopefully, I'll see you next Friday. I don't know if I'm able to answer questions, but I will. Ride-alongs, reach out to, Leo can reach out to me or Assistant Chief Bravo, and we can certainly schedule one.
Thank you.
All right.
Well, being that we have nothing else, this meeting is over at 6:24. Can't forget that.